SoccerBeat, what?
Hi everybody, it's SoccerBeat and we're talking what's trending with Mike Morton and your host Peter du Toit. Mike, I'm jealous of you. You had the prime spot. You had all access in Limpopo at the Peter Mokaba Stadium for Bafana versus Lesotho. And most of us watched the game on television. The vast majority of the country watched it on television. There were those in the stadium and then they had all access. So you're in the unique position to be able to give us an intimate understanding of what happened behind the scenes. Bafana versus Lesotho. So, first of all, quick question. The atmosphere must have been fantastic.
Amazing, Peter. I went to the Cape Town game when Bafana played in Cape Town. Was amazing. Polokwane was just as good, if not better. It just gives you goosebumps when you watch a Bafana game in front of 50,000 South Africans. It's absolutely incredible, and you can see that the way it affects our performance and the way it affects just the general feeling of people wanting to be at a football game. It's incredible.
Well, it's very clear that I think it's probably the first time since when we won the AFCON where we've got the country and the team as one. This is our team. And the team understands it and the country understands it. It's incredible, just a goosebump moment. But let's go right to the show because this is what the fans all want to hear about. And guys, before Mike gets into action, please don't forget, go on the Betway site, press the SoccerBeat tab and get yourself 25 Rand extra betting money. Right, Mike, behind the scenes, Percy Tau. You know, when you watch the game, it didn't look like the player Broos says he is. What did the fans say? What did you see? What did you hear?
Yeah, look, Peter, when I was there, he didn't start the game very well. I think that was noticeable for everybody. He didn't have the best of games. But what I really like about Hugo Broos is that he obviously knows what he wants from his players, and he knows that Percy is a crucial part of the Bafana Bafana setup, and he wants him to be. Wants him to get goals because he knows that a good Percy Tau is beneficial for South Africa. So even though from within 20, 30 minutes, the fans did start to get on Percy's back more and more. Even when he did his first round of subs at around 60 minutes, you sort of assumed that Percy would be the first to come off because he wasn't really firing. Hugo keeps him on. And what a lot of people don't see is obviously the work that he does off the ball. And the coach, even after the game, came in the press conference, said he was actually very happy with Percy's performance. And to a certain degree, you can say, well, how can he say that? Because all his touches and impacts on the ball weren't fantastic. But what I will say about him is that what he does off the ball and what people don't necessarily watch on TV is he's one of the few guys that breaks the line and runs behind. And that's always been the case since his Sundowns days, since Al Ahly days. He's the one guy that's willing to run in behind and run the channels. And I think that's the exact reason that the coach is a big fan of Magopa as well. Very agile, very, very quick. And Percy's always looking for that ball in behind. And even if you don't get the ball, defenders will know that's the worst thing that you want, is that it's someone that's always looking to exploit the space behind. It makes them drop their line all the time, and Percy does that. So it might be something that the coach looks for and asks for, and he might be very happy with the way that Percy's playing. It's very hard from the outside to see what kind of instructions Percy's playing under, but he's definitely working hard. That's the one thing you can definitely say.
So, Mike, and it's interesting for the viewers out there. So when we watched on TV, Percy certainly didn't look like an effective player. But I get your point, and I think the viewers out there get your point as well, is that when you're there at the stadium and you've got a bird's eye view, you've seen all the forward runs he makes, which is great for obviously midfielders and fullbacks in particular, because you want your front men to get behind the opposing defenders, which is very difficult with a low block. You'd also want someone like Foster to do it, but he's like a Mabasa, wants to come off and get it to feet, which needs to create a space for your midfielders to get in there. But the way we're playing, the only man who possibly could do it, or your wingers getting in there, but they really don't, besides probably Mofokeng, is Percy Tau. We can see that. But just let's take this point a little further. Why would he drop evidence then? Because funny enough, if you look at evidence, he does that. And I know people may not believe this, but he seems to be a better finisher on current finishing than Tau. Plus, he gives us extra height and therefore a different dimension to the game. Plus, his last game against Sundowns, he was outstanding. If you look just purely from a goals and assist point of view, he was very effective. And I thought he could have done down the channels, even though it's a different team you're playing. Lesotho, obviously, low block, and Sundowns not. But it's interesting. Why do you think he's dropped evidence, who he's been very loyal to all this time, and brings in Tau, who actually, to a certain extent, almost didn't want to play for Bafana for a while. Well, that's the kind of thought I got. Why do you think that's happened?
Yeah, that's definitely a strange one, Peter. I don't know why you would have left Mahopa at home, but from the looks of things, Lyle Foster is his striker of choice right now, and the first choice on the bench is obviously Ikram Reynolds. Those are very similar players in my eyes. So maybe he was determined for these two games, these back-to-back games, that he was going to use Foster and Ikram Reynolds. And it's quite likely, in my opinion, that Ikram, especially with the impact he had coming on, that he probably starts this game against Benin just because of the quick turnaround. I think he'll make a couple changes. It's unlikely he goes with the exact same 11. But the interesting one will obviously be Percy. We know he's not in the best of form. He tried to keep him on, and it was almost a masterstroke because with obviously 10 minutes to go, Percy had an open goal and he could have smashed that one home, and everyone would have said Hugo Broos is a genius for leaving him on, and he gets a goal and his confidence comes back. In the best case for Bafana Bafana, we have Percy scoring goals again. So almost a masterstroke, but let's see if he starts him again against Benin.
It's again, fun enough, if you look at it logically, evidence should be in the squad because you're going away to Benin. You want a player that can bustle and get in people's faces. Tau's not that kind of player. Reynolds, to a certain extent, is. Foster, I think, can do a lot more of that. I think a striker has got to make those runs as well. So it's an interesting one, but we're going to take a short break. Message from our sponsors, and we'll be straight back with you.
How would you like to win a little something extra just for joining the best in the game? For a limited time, we are teaming up with Betway and giving all of you access to a SoccerBeat exclusive. If you join Betway using the sign-up code SoccerBeat, now in March, you'll get 25 Rand extra bet. That's right. It's time to get way more out of every bet. Standard T's and C's apply.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. And guys, normally Mike gives you a firm instruction. This is a request from me. First of all, thank you for all our new subscribers. Thank you for all of you subscribing. It means a lot to us. It allows us to be able to get even more sponsors, to be able to do even more shows for you. So guys, please don't forget to subscribe. We really appreciate it. And we're grateful for all this, for all of you. And I wish I could thank all of you individually, but I'm thanking you again. Right. So, Mike, again, behind the scenes, the thing that comes across quite clearly when you watch the team celebrate and how they communicate with each other throughout the game, and from the bench point of view as well, it looks like there's a proper family atmosphere being created by Hugo Broos. And when you think of Hugo Broos, he seems quite not like a fatherly figure. He seems like quite a stern figure. Yet it seems like quite a family kind of environment, a strong team. You were there, all access. You see other players react to each other behind the scenes. What did you gather behind the scenes that you can tell the fans out there who are not in that situation, who are not benefiting like you are?
Yeah, there were a lot of things said over the course of those 3 days, Peter, in the press conferences in and around the squad that really made me believe that this is incredible team environment. I mean, Ronwin, one of the main things he said in his press conference before the game was how he received a whole bunch of messages because obviously he's been injured recently. He said multiple messages from all his teammates, like asking him how he's doing. Will he be back in camp? Skipper, how you doing? So just saying, like, there's a lot of communication between these guys. They're not just waiting until camp to interact with each other. There's a big bond between these guys. The other thing he said as well was that usually with Bafana Bafana, and I experienced this as well with national team, is when they used to say you got to get to camp on Monday, some of the guys flying in from different parts of the world, they'd miss their first flight, or they'd choose to take a later flight, and they wouldn't arrive there on the Monday when everyone was gathering. Ronwin's saying now, like, guys can't wait to get to camp. They're coming early. Like, they can't wait to catch up with their mates and be together. There's a lot of good vibes coming out of that camp. And I mean, we saw obviously with Rele first coming into the squad, and the way with Ronwin made a plan to get him onto the field, to get him his debut. There's all these things that you just think, like, there's really something special brewing here. And Hugo Broos, and I think that's why he's so adamant with his core group of players that he doesn't want to change. So when people say, oh, but this guy's not informed, Hugo Broos says, like, these are my guys. Moby's not informed. No, he's my player. He's creating a strong group. I mean, what do we say now? 22 games undefeated since we lost to Mali in the AFCON. I mean, that's really special, and you don't get that type of consistency if you don't have a really strong group of guys. So yeah, it's just really good feelings coming out of the camp.
And Mike, so that you touch on a very interesting point, his record. I think he probably has got the best record in Africa, if you think about it, including if you take the AFCON, since he changed the team. Because let's be real here, when he came, there was a lot of dissent about his appointment. Then B, the country didn't get behind the team initially because it was quite disjointed. He went for a very young squad. And then the media did call for Zwane to come back. And it seems to be, I don't have the actual matches in front of me. Once he brought Zwane back and then had a settled team, and everybody bought into that because the results started looking better. That seemed to be the turning point, bringing the Zwane back and building a solid team and ignoring all the criticism, having the confidence that he's going to get it right. And you just retired as a player. Let the viewers know out there how important it is for a squad and a player to know that your coach is backing the entire squad. Because you don't want a situation where coach is actually backing a core group of players, but the others are unimportant. The fact that Moby is there all the time does say, listen, guys, yes, you're not playing for Chiefs prior to Sundowns, but you, my man, you're not getting in every game, but you're my man. What does that do to a squad? And it's even harder to do for a national team. You're a player. What do you think it does? What does it do? How do the players react?
Yeah, 1,000,000% makes you want to play for him. And just the fact that he has that faith in you, you almost feel like you owe a coach like that, especially when you're out of form and he keeps on backing you, like just subliminally, you start to think to yourself, like, what? I've got to prove this point to him. I've got to help him out because now he's put his neck on the line for me. Like in a Percy situation, after Percy missed that chance, the whole crowd is on Percy's back and the whole crowd's giving it the good old change him. And Hugo Broos says, no, that's my guy. Like, and as a player, you yourself say, okay, this guy's got my back. He's putting his neck on the line for me. I owe it to him to make sure that I come through. So it definitely has a massive impact in how much you want to play for a coach. And the one thing I will also note about him, Peter, and it's not very common, especially in today's day and age, is that he hardly ever gets up off the bench. I don't know if you've noticed this, but he's not that type of coach that gets up and shouts instructions or whatever. It's almost like he's done his preparation. He sits down on the bench. If anything needs to be said, Hellman will get up now and again. Maybe Grant, the goalkeeper coach, will get up now and again. He just sits. He's very, very calm on the bench. And with a young group of players, it just seems like there's not an overload of information during the game where he's screaming crazy instructions. He's very, very calm. And I'm a huge fan. I think he's got a very strong personality. I mean, when was the last time we have had a national team that didn't have a single Kaizer Chiefs player in the squad? I mean, that takes... within South African, the South African public, I know that there's a lot of pressure to select players from Orlando Pirates, Kaizer Chiefs, and to go out there as a coach and to say there's not a single player in the country right now that I'm selecting for my national team from Kaizer Chiefs. It's brave, and he's not many coaches have done it in the past, but he picks who he wants.
Look, I don't think it's brave, but I think he's also playing for a result. No disrespect to Kaizer Chiefs, probably only Thele would be in the squad. Dortley obviously would have been in the squad, and Thele I think will get his turn. Just, again, behind the scenes and letting the viewers out there and the fans out there and the SoccerBeat fans out there know from a player's perspective in particular, and 90% of the people out there not being professional players like you have, or even more, is that trust is a big thing in football. When you trust your teammates and you trust your coach, trust creates loyalty, especially away from home. That's critical. Do you get that sense with the players that... And one of the reasons why maybe he sits down on the bench, that he shows that he trusts, because he's not doing all these coaches to stand up and it's about me, me, me. Can you get that sense of trust in that team when you're there?
Yeah, that's actually that's an amazing point, Peter. And I actually, and I think that's the exact word that I'm actually looking for. Is it's just because he's resolute in who he picks, and he's picked the same guys over and over again. He knows his players and he trusts them to do what he wants and his instructions. And the fact that he picks guys over and over again, I mean, historically, Peter, we'll know with Bafana Bafana, we just pick the flavor of the week. One player scores 3 goals this weekend, he's in the national team. Another guy scores 2 goals this weekend, everyone's calling for, he said, get him into the national team. Hugo Broos, this is my group of players. If you want to get into this national team, you're going to have an extended period of time where you're really, really knocking on the door before you're even going to get a look in. he has his group of 25, 30 players, and he goes through them all the time, and it comes down to trust. So, I'm a huge fan, and I think he's put South African football back into a very, very healthy position, and we feel that at the stadiums, and I think South Africa's really starting to believe again.
So I'm not going to ask you to name any coaches, but I'm going to ask you how many times in your career, and you played with, how many clubs did you play for?
9.
How many coaches within that 9 approximately?
Sure, they're probably over 20, I'd say.
Okay. How many coaches did you believe? Now, this is not a reflection of yourself, Mike, so don't, because one's feeling towards your coach is critical. How many coaches do you think absolutely trusted you? Now, that's not, by the way, based on your ability. It's how some coaches are. Even if a coach, I can tell you now, within that squad with Broos, they're not players all 9 out of 10. He's got some players who go, okay, he's a 6 out of 10 at this. He's a 5 out of 10, or he's a 9 out of 10, 8. But he understands that if they believe, they have his full belief, on a one-off basis, a 5 can go to a 7. It's obviously, so just a question, because it's interesting for the viewers out there. In your career, which coach would you say you felt trusted you? Not which coach, you don't have to mention names unless you want to. How many coaches out of your 20 plus did you feel trusted you implicitly? And it's a reflection of the coach, not you.
Well, I wouldn't frame it necessarily just as myself, but I think like trusting the team that he had prepared. I'd say, it would be on one hand probably the amount of. Yeah, I'm saying, but in terms of like not just trusting me, but trusting the group that I was in, because I think a lot of it comes down to being able to trust. And that it all comes down to how is the coach that you've worked with prepared that group for the weekend. And is he happy with what the work he's done from Monday to Friday? Then on Saturday, he can sit down and say, I've done my work with this group of players and I trust him to take the information I've given them and present that on the weekend. And
looking after the players who are in the stands, because they also got to feel the trust. So, okay, I agree. You framed it differently to me, and your frame better than mine. So how many coaches do you believe that you played with in the 20 plus coaches you had that had the full trust, like Broos has?
Yeah, I'd say it would be on one hand, Peter, the amount of coaches that really trusted the process that they'd put in from Monday to Friday. I mean, I've seen it quite often where you do all this work from Monday to Friday, and at halftime you make 3 changes because it's not working, and you just think, well, then all the work we did from Monday to Friday didn't work because you were standing up within 20 minutes saying like, do this, do this, do this. It's like, why did we work from Monday to Friday on a certain game plan?
Lack of trust. And no team does well unless they trust their coach. Before we close off, the Benin game, the lineup, his squad. Is he going to keep the same lineup? Because that lineup, to a certain extent, Mike, is a 4-2-4 lineup because Percy played way higher up, almost in a kind of free role, but he's not a defensive player. We were outnumbered to a certain extent in midfield, not to a certain extent, to a great extent, by Lesotho. Different ball game away from home. I cannot see him playing that same starting lineup, but I may be wrong. What do you think he'll do?
Yeah, I see it very unlikely that he goes with a midfield 2, which it essentially was a 2 on the weekend, of Adams and Mokoena. Incredible footballers, and you could still go with the 2 of them, but I'd have a third midfielder in there. I think it's very unlikely that we go. What's that?
I'd play Obas.
Obas probably play next to Tebza, and maybe Jaden if he's going to play all 3 of them, and then Jaden as the more attacking option. But very unlikely he goes with a 2-man midfield.
I think he'll bring in Obas because he's top class at playing that holding role. He's been outstanding. If he mustn't get himself booked early on, and then I think it'll be a choice between Percy Tau and Adams. And
I think Ikram will start as well. I think he'll use Ikram's legs to run as well. Maybe Ikram come in for one of the other attacking players. Mokoena always plays. Mofokeng probably. Interesting. I actually think he might even go with Apollos and give Mofokeng because Apollos for me has actually been our best player for Bafana Bafana in the last year. So he's actually been unlucky.
I agree with you. I think Apollos will start in place of Mofokeng, not because Mofokeng is not a fantastic player.
No,
but he's got a good option to bring Mofokeng in later. I'm not sure whether he'll start with Reyners versus Foster. I think he will start Foster, but let's see. But Reyners definitely will come on because he's got better legs than Foster. He's prepared to go in there, and I think he's a better finisher than Foster, although he also missed a chance. He hasn't been that great for Bafana, even against South Sudan. I'm talking about...
but I mean, his pressing was very, very effective. I mean, I think all the chances he had in that Bafana game, he basically created himself with the pressure, and I think he intercepted a couple passes as well. So away from home, I would back him to start Iki up front ahead of Foster, and then with our 3-man midfield, and I think we'll be good to go. Obviously, the travel makes it difficult to go with the same 11 again just a couple days later.
I'm a little concerned also at the 2 centre backs, and I thought the 2 fullbacks gave away way too much possession against Lesotho as well. But you know what? A different team. So I think we'll be a lot more conservative in how we play, and therefore we'll reduce the errors as well. But we're right behind the team. We wish them well. Mike, thanks for that intimate view of what's going on behind the scenes at Bafana Bafana. And we'll all be there with our kit on, cheering the guys. Guys, don't forget also support our sponsors, all of them, and in particular the Betway giveaway they've given you with 25 Rand. Go on the Betway app and press the SoccerBeat, hit the SoccerBeat tab. Really appreciate it. Please subscribe. Mike, you're a star. Chat again. Love you guys.
Cheers, guys.
SoccerBeat, what?